This is the Garden. So give yourself a round of applause for supporting this amazing space that we've been able to create. I have a wonderful filmmaking partner with me tonight, Dr. Sian Proctor. Can we give her a round of applause?
Thank you.
And I just want to give a brief introduction, even though most of you just saw her film. We met a few years ago, and weird, sides of separation. But my wife worked for her. My creative partner and writing partner, Cash Cole, was a student of hers. And then, come Indiefilmfest 2020, she was an attendee at one of our workshops, and we started talking about making films back then. Mm-hmm. And we kept in contact, and I got a text message after watching all of the Netflix series of her online and watching her lift off to space and come back down safely and dance off the podium of when she got out of the capsule. And I get this text message, and hey, I want to make a film. Can you meet me at my apartment when I get to Phoenix? And I said, sure. When do you land? She goes, tomorrow. And you saw, if you haven't seen it, you went to see it, but you saw everything literally from that point forward of this cool week adventure that we had.
Yeah.
And I just want to give Sian a chance to talk about what all happened when you got back to Earth, and what is that like getting back to Earth.
It actually was pretty amazing because you just want everything to go right, and for as my commander says, the stars definitely aligned for our mission, just from the crew selection through the training to launching, being on orbit, and then coming down and splashing down. And so, once you come down, what do? You go to Disneyland. I went and I stayed. We had the splashdown party with my family and friends. And again, everything that I packed for space, well, you can't take anything off the capsule. So that all went back to Hawthorne and SpaceX. And so you can't even think about it. So I spent a good week down in Florida, just kind of hanging out and decompressing and thinking about, wow, did that just happen? And then I did try to fly the Millennium Falcon because I actually went to the amusement park. And then you come home. I didn't even get to go home really. I went to Hawthorne, and they're like, yeah, you can take this stuff back. And you're just like, wait, what? Okay, all right, I'm ready for this. And so it felt like, I just remember thinking when they gave me my suitcase, how I was like, man, this is such an important moment in my life. How can I document this? And I thought, Matty. I got to reach out to Matty because I know he wants to work with me, and he'll get this. And so I feel very fortunate that, you answered the text. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. It was 100%. Like, no, 100%, no hesitation in going down this.
I was waiting for the text, to be honest. I was like, what's taking her so long?
Really, exactly.
Where is she?
And but I have a book of art and poetry that's out, and I just wanted to start off by reading to you the winning poem of what this is. In case you haven't seen the Netflix series, I actually won my seat, the prosperity seat, through Twitter. It was a Twitter contest where you had to show your entrepreneurial spirit by opening up a Shift4 shop and then create a 2-minute and 20-second Twitter video. And so I could have, said I'm a geologist, I was a finalist for the NASA Astronaut program, but instead I said I'm an artist and a poet, and, you should send me to space because of that. And I wrote an original poem called Space to Inspire. And most of you heard this before? Anybody? Oh, that's great. Oh, well, you don't count. They're the people I brought with me. And so this was my winning poem for my video that I submitted. Space to Inspire. You've got space. I've got space. We all have space to inspire. That's why we dream of going higher and higher. But what is space if you can't breathe? Let's stop sucking out the air of our humanity. We have a moment to seize the light, earth from space, both day and night. We have J for justice, to ignite the bold. We have E for equity, to cut past the old. We have D for diversity, to end the fight. We have I for inclusion, to try to make it right. A Jedi space to rally behind. A universal force so big it binds. Inspiration to change the world. A new beginning for us to hold. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about space to inspire for all of humanity. Science, technology, engineering, and math, sending us out on the explorer's path. But don't forget the arts, the heartbeat of time. Consider sending a poet who knows how to rhyme. So let us drop the mic and close the capsule door. But please make sure Dr. Proctor is on board. My space to inspire is what we need. Inspiration for all of humanity.
Just beautiful. Just beautiful. I love every single part of your art. And if you don't know this, this Saturday, Dr. Proctor will be having a book signing right here in the building at Strawberry Hedgehog, and we'll be launching. She'll be signing this book. Hot off the presses. There's something really unique about not just that you're a poet and that you're an artist, but you have so many different, backgrounds and qualifications in so many different ways that I think that there needs to be more to talk about than just like this trip. So give us a little bit of understanding of maybe what the last few years have been like being a science professional as yourself, an artist. And for those of you who don't know, she's also a professor of geology at South Mountain Community College, and she's taught at ASU. There's been several different science TV shows that she's been featured on. What has been the last few years that has led to this whole moment?
That's a good point. I feel like I've been chasing space my entire life, and as a kid, I wanted to be a fighter pilot, Top Gun era, and then to be an astronaut. And my dad was always my biggest champion. But when he passed away when I was 19, and I got glasses, so it meant I wasn't going to be a fighter pilot back in the 80s. But he had this idea of being, you could make opportunity for yourself through education. And so neither of my parents had college degrees. And so my dad and my mom really wanted me and my siblings to get educated and then to go out into the world and try to make a difference. And so I went off and I got my undergrad degree in environmental science. And then I came out here to go to Arizona State University for my master's and PhD, and that's when I fell in love with teaching. And I feel so fortunate that I finished 22 years at the Maricopa Community College District with South Mountain as a geoscience professor. And that has enabled me to travel and teach around the world and to really kind of understand our planet and the processes that occur on it, and how not only it's helping to shape us, but how humans are shaping it. But I always had that love of aviation and aerospace, and just that explorer heart in me of wanting to go out and do things. And it's interesting because early on they track you as either an artist or a scientist, when in reality we're a combination, a blend of both of those things, and that needs to be acknowledged and celebrated more. But I had kind of kept that art side at bay because I'm a scientist, and having that narrative, and my biggest creative outlet was traveling. As a geoscientist, going and seeing our beautiful planet and experiencing it, and then COVID happened. And that went away. I could no longer travel. And I just remember being in my house and thinking and my marriage was kind of falling apart at that time. And I kept thinking, well, what am I going to do? How do I be creative? And that's when art came in, and poetry came into back into my life, I would say, and I started making collage art, and finding and just finding joy in creating stuff, and then painting. And then as I created these things, I thought, how do I share what it is that I'm expressing in this piece of art? And that's where the poetry came in. And I really felt that my voice for the first time was emerging, my authentic voice, something that had been to some extent stifled because I was taught, don't step out of line, don't be the judgmental, angry black woman, you got to fit in, you got to assimilate, you got to just work hard and do your thing. And that had led to opportunity, but it didn't enable me to be open and authentic. And so in 2020, that really kind of came out of me. And when it came time for the Inspiration 4 and applying to win the Prosperity seat, I just knew that I had to go down that road as an artist and a poet, because and then to be able to bring, the world on this journey of melding the two. And I just want to say that my call sign is Leo. When I finally got to go to fighter jet, school basically with my commander last year, and my crew and the Inspiration for team decided that my call sign should be Leo. And it's because they considered me a modern day Renaissance woman, a Leonardo da Vinci, because I melded science and
Perfect.
art together.
So perfect.
Yeah.
I love that, number one, that you followed that passion. Mm-hmm. I think we all are thankful that you didn't, miss that connection to art. Mm-hmm. you didn't scare away from it. There's a lot of us in the room here that are artists, and getting that support from family or friends, or even just self-support sometimes, having that courage to say, I am artistic, I am creative, and I can make something out of this. It's very inspiring to see that. And being your friend and seeing that happen, in action, I remember there was a project we had worked on where I came to your house and I interviewed you, and you were still in teaching mode. Mm-hmm. And it was you go from there to this, really grasping that artist mode. It was very inspiring for us, both myself and my wife. And I want to talk on that just a little bit. I want to give Brian a check. Are we good? Okay, good. The broadcast is still live, everybody. So we didn't. That's me being like, oh right, so I'm not behind the camera. We're good. You just finished a whole Netflix series. You've been inundated with cameras in front of you. You were on the cover of Time magazine. Twice. This is something that a lot of us as filmmakers are trying to achieve, in life, of acceptance, being mm-hmm. on the cover or being on this platform. And I wanted to give you a chance, because part of the reason why we made this film was because you didn't have control.
Yeah.
And I would love to give you a chance just to talk about what it's like to have control of your art and being able to say, this is how I'm going to put it out.
Well, I think that was the biggest part that I realized with being able to become an artist, was that I finally had control over my voice and what I wanted to do and portray. And when the Netflix series is amazing, they did a fantastic job, but it still wasn't my story. And so being able, they captured my story, but it was a blend. And so to be able to come back and have this unique kind of thing that I did, and to be able to share it in that fun way, and to find somebody who got what it is that I wanted to say. And I think that's the creativity. We spend a lot of our time consuming information and data. And I've done that, as a scientist, collecting data and stuff like that. But as a creator, it's different because now I'm taking all this knowledge and this information and this life that I've lived and experienced, and I get to create and put things out that kind of express the geology, the sustainability, the explorer, but also the visual, spatial, and the art and the storytelling, and then with the words, the poetry, to express what it is that I want, that I'm feeling. And I think that when we're talking about, having control over your own messaging, there's a sense of there's gratitude, but it's a sense of, and it's not even empowerment, it's a sense of just knowing. I think that's that part about becoming, that you're able to become yourself in that space.
I love that so much.
Mm-hmm.
You're so cool. I want to talk one more thing before we get going here, wrap this up so that everybody can see the next session kind of thing. And thank you all for so much being a great audience. Y'all so nice. We're going to do this more often, I think, You have this augmented reality side of your book where you're bridging your science side to your art. And for those of you who don't know, and maybe you can talk about this too, when Dr. Sian Proctor was in space, before she was even finished with her piece of art, it was auctioned off as an NFT. Am I correct on this?
It was a different piece of art, but it's in the book. And so it's Seeker, this piece right here. And so I made this piece before I knew I was going to space. Twitter has done a lot for me. But another former astronaut, Richard Garriott, was going down to the Marianas Trench, and he was taking art and poetry with him. Yeah. And a friend said, hey, you should be in contact with him. And so because Guam sits on the Marianas, it was like coming home. But from a geology standpoint, I was like, oh, I can bring in my science and my geology, but in an art and creative way. So this represents the Marianas Trench, the bottom of the ocean around it, my character Aphrodite, Mother Earth, and then above the water and below the water. But the poem is a certain type of poem. It's called a cinquain, where it's, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but it's based on syllabi. And so it's a 2, 4, 6, 8, 2 syllabi, 5 lines. And so Seeker is, why go? Because I can. It's what humans do. We explore, we observe, we learn. Seeker. And that is, and so then when it came up, so when he came back up from the Marianas Trench, I had won my seat to space. And I knew that because we were raising $200 million for St. Jude Children's Research.
Whoa, hold on. How much were you raising?
So my commander, Jared Isaacman, he set the goal of raising $200 million for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, the largest fundraiser in their history.
That's so good.
And so I wanted to be able to contribute. And I thought, well, how can I contribute? I don't make that kind of money. So I was like, all right, maybe I can contribute through my art and poetry. And so I knew that this would be a special piece. So it ended up going from the bottom of the Marianas Trench, the deepest part of our planet. Then I gave it to another friend of mine who happened to be an astronaut, a former NASA astronaut, total rock star, Scott Perzinski, and his wife, Minnie. They were going down to the bottom of the Titanic. And so I gave it to them, and it went down to the bottom of the Titanic. And then they brought it up back to me, and then it went to space with me and my crew, and we all signed the back of it, and then I handed it to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, where it went for auction for $100,000.
Wow.
And yeah.
That's really taking something and making it, right?
Yes.
Like when we all sit there and go like, what is my art actually worth? And you can actually not just sell it, but sell it for change.
Yes.
Sell it for helping people, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to give us a chance to take any questions.
That sounds great.
Does anybody have any questions for Sian for tonight? No brave souls?
No,
go ahead.
there's a
Go ahead. Yeah, unique.
I was just going to ask about
Yes. It was 6 months. It was intense, and I gotta say the Netflix series really does a good job of capturing it. It was a lot of book work because when I learned that I had won the prosperity seat, Jared also said to me, "And I think you should be the mission pilot." And and I in my head I was thinking, "What, is he crazy?" No, but I'm like, yeah, okay, I can do that. I fly Cessna 172 10 years ago. And so a lot of it was, but in a modern day spacecraft, it's an autonomous system. So it's not like you have a joystick or, like a rudder and, all of that kind of stuff in regular aviation. Instead, you got a flat screen monitor and you become a systems engineer. And you really have to know the systems inside and out and whether or not the flight computer is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. And then if you have an alert or an issue, it was my job to kind of bring up the system that was being affected and really try to understand with me and my commander, could we do something about it? And so lots of book work because I'm not an engineer. and then training, crew cohesion, jet fighter training, hiking Mount Rainier. As a geoscientist, I consider myself a hiker.
No big deal.
I'm not a mountaineer. I learned that on that journey. Was
it this like team building type stuff though?
Team building, yep.
This is to make sure that you guys can work together?
Yeah, it's team building, but also it's that idea of that when you don't think you can go further, how do you dig deep and take that next step? And that definitely happened on Mount Rainier.
Is this something that came up also in the flight? Like, did you feel like there was any moment where you needed that extra to get past it? No,
mainly everything that happened from liftoff onward was really just great. It was the worry that once I got selected, it's like the Olympics. It's like making the Olympic team, and everybody's like, yeah, and you're like, whoa, I still got to win the gold. You still have this long stretch from being selected to actually competing and doing this. And so I was really worried that along that way I'd get hurt or I'd get COVID,
right.
or I would get or they would say you're not smart enough or good enough, or there could be anything, because even though I won my seat, SpaceX was very adamant that you may have gotten here, but you got to be trained to this point, and we will not sign you off unless you make it. And so I was like, oh boy, I got to make it, and it really wasn't until a week before liftoff that I said, all right, I got this. I'm ready. Let's do it.
So good.
Thank you for being here. Yes. We talked a lot about how you are science and art, and I think as people, we pigeonhole ourselves, right? One or the other, and especially as women, we're told we can only be one thing, and you can't be anything beyond that. So I think that's really inspiring. What advice would you give young women, or even your younger self, who are trying to figure out what to be? How they can be multiple things, how they can be that Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, one thing is be invested, not invest, well, I guess invested is the right word, in lifelong learning. Like it's for the long haul. You're always learning every day, taking in information and processing it and exploring and thinking about our world, but also self-reflecting about yourself. But it really is about creativity and being able to unleash your creativity. Again, you can be a consumer of information and data, but how do you flip that and become a creator and putting things out there in different ways, whether it's in the kitchen cooking or baking, or how you go about even the way you present yourself and the things you think about. There's creativity all around us every day. And I think that's how when you can latch onto that and think in terms of that you are a creator and that you have a unique space to inspire with, then it changes the conversation you have, not only with yourself, but also how you put yourself out there.
Do you think there has to be a sense of being okay with failing?
Oh yeah.
Like because I definitely felt this in the filmmaking career, is that it's such a tool to fail. You know, like I think there's so much that happened in my early part of my career where, you know, I felt like I can't fail. If I fail, it's done. I'm never doing it again. Like the idea of, if this doesn't work, I'm never going to do it again. And the older I get, the more I stay with it, right? The more I start realizing it's like, well, failing is not bad.
Yeah.
Like failing is actually kind of like, sometimes I'm like, I need to fail at this. No, I don't.
Yeah,
But I feel that like kind of urge of like, I need to learn more about this. Is that, I mean, you were up for the next NASA project, a finalist, and then, and you didn't stop after not getting that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing for a lot of us, you know, to see, is that someone that makes it to space had your chances, cut at one point, and you didn't stop.
Absolutely. You know, in 2009, I was a finalist for the NASA astronaut selection process. And it was a year-long process to get down to the point where you're getting down to the yes/no phone call. And it was either yes, you're going to be an astronaut, or no, try again. And I remember getting that phone call and just kind of being devastated because, it's that childhood dream just kind of like slips through your fingers. And at that time, I was 39. And I thought, wow, this was probably my last and only option to go to space. And you again, talking about that imposter syndrome, you start thinking, well, I just got to be better the next time. I really just kind of turned my life upside down. And I was going to get my advanced scuba. I was going to get my commercial pilot's license. I was going to learn Russian. I was going to do all of these things. And I started going down this path, and I realized that, it was a destructive path for me. Because up until that point, I was just living my life and doing my thing, and instead of celebrating that I was a finalist for the NASA astronaut program, I was tearing myself up, and I had to stop myself and say, wait, this isn't who I am. This is not good for me. I need to go back to this thing of living my life and being creative, and bringing back hope. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to celebrate this instead. I'm going to say, look, I was almost a finalist for the NASA astronaut program out of thousands of people. This is a great thing. And then to move forward, I may never get to space, but I can still advance human spaceflight here on Earth. So I became an analog astronaut. And that's a person who goes and lives in Moon and Mars simulations. So I ended up living in like the high seas habitat for 4 months, investigating food strategies for long duration spaceflight. And, and I was doing these things, but I always had hope. I was like, and it was funny because right before COVID happened in 2020, NASA announced a new selection. And people asked me, they were like, are you going to apply? Are you going to apply? And I'm like, no, I'm almost 50. There's no way, NASA's not going to take me. Because they just, history-wise, they kind of take people who are women in their 30s. And I said, and I told people this. I said, but one day, maybe commercial space.
Yes.
Hello, commercial space. Who knew
it
it was this soon, right? But I was like, but that was what I was saying. I was like, yeah, I still have hope. Yeah. That maybe one day, if I just keep, doing things and being present and being, ready, that the opportunity would come. And it did. And I think that that's it with even like being a filmmaker, is that you're in anything that we do in life. It's about being, preparation and persistence, because you're preparing and learning and moving forward, but there are going to be things that knock you back. And so you got to persist through that and keep moving forward, so that when the opportunity does come, you can take it and make the most of it.
I love that so much. I want to end with something about hope. And you and I have talked about this because we're hopefully going to be working on a new project that we're not going to talk about here, but it is surrounding our planet.
Yeah.
And the need that, number one, our planet needs our help. And that in your point of view, there is no planet B.
Right.
And I want to give you a chance, because you've seen the world in a way that none of us can ever see it at this point. And you've been around the world and you've seen these things, and you're a geologist, and I would just love to give you a chance to talk about like what kind of hope we have as a humanity to try to save this planet.
Yeah, that's a good point, is that, having gone to space and seen our beautiful Earth from that vantage point, and actually to be bathed in Earth light, and just feel our planet pulsating and all of the energy and life and love that it has. But then when you go in and you get down on the surface, what we're doing, and I think about this a lot, how we're consumers again, and we turned into a throwaway society. We consume and throw away, consume and throw away. And so thinking about how we individually feel like we don't have, we can't make change because I'm just one person. But, when I was up in the orbit and looking at our Earth, I kept thinking how it was like a painting in motion, and how, you might be just one, bristle on the brush of a paintbrush. And collectively, you think you can't do anything with just one bristle, but collectively, we can make a portrait. And so if we each just showed Mother Earth a little bit of love in our own way, imagine what we could do, right? And so how that could transform us. But not just, our planet, but even to each other. When I think of a Jedi space, a just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive space, I'm not talking about outer space. I'm talking about this space, the space that you inhabit, this unique space around you. You take it everywhere you go. If you can make this space a Jedi space, and you think about it and you're actively pursuing that, if we all made our own space a Jedi space, the world would be magical.
You're magical. That's a fact. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here tonight. If you want to know more about Dr. Sian Proctor, we'll be posting her links. Come see her book signing on Saturday. And we have a whole festival to continue. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.